What's up, and welcome to the Drekentalk podcast. I am your host, DreKen, and today we are live from the Motivate the Game headquarters run by Mr. Daniel Brooks. He's a licensed mental health therapist, former Franklin County standout quarterback, as well as Hampton University standout quarterback. We also have my brother to my right, Mr. Leroy Wingo III. He's also a clinical mental health specialist, a 20-year Navy vet. Guys,
yes, sir.
What's up, baby?
Yes,
glad to have y'all in the building,
man.
Glad to be here.
Glad
to make it happen, man.
be
I'm glad to be here.
No doubt, man. This is something that's long overdue that
Absolutely.
most definitely need to be touched on. It's a little bit different aspect and a different side to the sports thing and life thing, and it's the mental health thing, man.
Absolutely.
Sure.
We all oftentimes overlook this mental health thing, and we have kids and adults that's looking for some help. They don't know how to get it or know the signs, but by the time we end here tonight, with
Absolutely.
the help of you guys, we're going to be able to get this audience some jewels and some
Absolutely.
things to look at, some signs to look out for, and the way to kind of help some of this mental health things that we got going on. So
Absolutely.
first of all, what we're going to do, we're going to again introduce to Mr. Daniel Brooks. He's the founder, owner of Motivate the Game. We at his headquarters today.
I love it.
No doubt.
Yeah.
I love it.
Daniel, man, just talk to us a little bit about yourself, what you got going on, and your motivation behind all this.
Yeah. I'm just a small town kid trying to have big city dreams, right? So we started off Franklin County, grew up, part of the struggle. My father, absent mother too, by way of different circumstances. So raised by my grandparents and sports kind of were my way out and the way things that saved my life, right? So fast forward so many years later, after getting an opportunity to play in college, I saw how much football did for me, but at the same time, how I didn't process the things I was going through. So I spent the next 15 years or so of my life in the mental health field trying to learn the strategies and navigate the system to learn how to bring it back to athletes, because I knew coaches had poured so much into me. So fast forward, here we are now, been about a year and a half in the making. Motivate the Game was created, where we mixed therapeutic support, mental health coaching, cognitive training with sports skills and drills. And we mix all of those together because what we saw is that traditionally athletes and youth don't want to go to traditional talk therapy. So what we did, we met them where they are. We kind of mixed the two worlds. And from there, been able to work with the juvenile justice system here in Roanoke, working with the FAP teams, working with in the school systems. I'm currently in Salem City Schools. So being able to really touch a lot of athletes in a bunch of different ways, as well as your traditional training. So it was licensed in 2020, reached the pinnacle of kind of my career as a licensed clinical social worker. Then I said, what can I do now? So we dove into this, and it's been a beautiful journey, man. Been doing camps and doing training, and here we are at my beautiful facility. That's all God's work, man. This is all coming from faith and faith led. So I'm super excited to be here.
No doubt. And, I had the honor of coming here and being a part of your
first one, man.
First one, man. And that was a beautiful thing. And we got one out of the guys that came, Quentin Foster.
That's my guy.
Great kid. He's about to sign on Thursday. Man.
I love it. That's it. And he won our motivation award, and he is the epitome of what we look for as that motivation award. He took that day and all the jewels and the things he was given, and he's being able to mold it into a part of his life, and now seeing what he's doing, I'm super excited. The best is yet to come for Quintarius, man. So I'm excited for him, Mr. Foster.
No doubt. It's a blessing. Now, this is my brother, my big brother Leroy. So I'm just gonna let him sit around and just give you, his story, his background before we get into the meat and potatoes and things.
Okay. So as you know, I spent 20 years in the military, as Dre was saying earlier, in the Navy, and ironic part of it is that my mother was in mental health, and so growing up as a child, I always saw her putting her best foot forward, helping people, making a difference in people's lives, mental health. So that was already a part of who I was.
Yeah.
Then when I went into the military, I was in a construction battalion, and basically what we would do is we would go overseas to disaster areas and clean up and rebuild schools, restore lives, rebuild homes and communities. So that's really been a part of my life, even in my military career.
Yeah.
And so after retiring in 2011, I got into coaching basketball, and not being the greatest coach, right, I understood how to connect to people, right, and connecting to young men and helping them overcome, because a lot of things they were dealing with was like anger and frustration, things that was going on in the home. A lot of them chose sports as a way out, right, and a coping mechanism. And so what I did was try to incorporate that mental health piece to where we talked about mental health. We talked about what was going on in the home, just giving them that mental outlet, right? And so what I knew is that they tie in. It fits.
Yep.
You know, when you look at these athletes and a lot of these professionals that, you know, they get into these troubles and they do things, or they don't make it because of behaviors and things that happen to them in their lives. And you have to ask yourself, where's this coming from? How did somebody in that position turn into this, right? How did this happen to them? Yeah. And so with that being said, I got into mental health and I went to school for that and became a licensed clinical social worker. I was just licensed in last year, the end of last year.
Let's go.
So started
fire.
my private
So
practice.
fire.
And I hooked up with my man over here, Mr. Daniel, through you.
Yeah.
And hey, we ready to do some big things.
Let's go.
No doubt. And you know, this is also a part of our Black History Month as well.
Absolutely.
Not just pinpointing black kids or anything, but we have 2 African American males here that's in this field. And you know, it's a big thing because we need more diversity in this field. But you know, that's a beautiful thing. But people, this is one of those shows where it might not be the glitz and glamour, but these are the shows that the kids, the adults, everybody need, because of the fact that mental health is one of the most slept on, you know, aspect of life to anything, whether it's for embarrassment, not knowing, or anything like that. So what we want to do is just kind of get into it with you guys about, you know, this thing called mental health, man. You know, let's just talk about, Daniel, we'll start with you. Let's talk about the mental health aspect in athletes.
Absolutely. So what happens is, as I said earlier, I talk about myself a little bit, is that athletes use athletics as an outlet, right? But in social work and in the mental health field, we have this thing called sublimation, right? So it's a defense mechanism where you know it's positive, but individuals use something positive to avoid negative feelings, right? So what happens is, as these athletes are going through this process and using football or sports as an outlet, they're not processing the things that they're going through. So prime example, me, right? But what happens is, even though we've reached the pinnacle of our playing in our career, when I got to college, I was away from home. I realized I hadn't processed the things that I had gone through. So then what happens now, we have to try to find ourselves. And when you're trying to find yourself, you don't know who you are. You're not able to be authentically you. That's when mental health issues start to arise, right? So then that manifests in athletes as this perfectionism, right? This idea of wanting to think that all they are athletes, all they are football players, because this is the Tylenol, so to speak, that makes me feel better, right? And then after that, then we get into sleep issues, we get into drug use, we get into all of these things that are a result of these athletes trying to suppress those thoughts and feelings, especially as they get out into the tail end of their career, right? So you see it time in and time out, athletes not being able to process, not being able to talk about it, because it's such a stigma, because especially in football and in sports in general, that, you know, it's this thing of strength, right? So when you're seen as weak, right, when you're seen as you can't handle certain things, then you're not going to want to process it. When the reality of it all is that, by, you know, if I knew you were sick and you didn't go to the doctor about, you know, for being sick, right? That's weak, right? That's when you're not getting better for the things that you're going through. That should be the thing that's seen as weak. If you have these issues and you want to get better at them, I never understood why that wasn't the thing that was the most supported aspect of sports. So yeah, athletes deal with it more and more, as well as when you go from being praised and loved on a Friday night to, you know, having to go back home or go to this situation or not being that person. We're going through these anxious feelings. You're building yourself up for this game just to come back down, and there's nothing at the bottom to kind of catch you or support you. Then you do this week in and week out. So that can also have a mental toll. So it's so many aspects. I know we can get into a lot of it, but athletes are my passion, and athletes were the ones who again, I feel like we go through a lot, but everyone feels as if we should be able to handle it all.
No doubt. And I just want to ask you one thing, Daniel. You know, the flip side to all that of being like the top athlete, you know, but you still have, you know, you using sports to get away from something. Talk to us a little bit about how do the child that's that top athlete is getting away from something. How does he handle when he run into a athletic problem? When he's not the man, he's not playing good, he's not scoring, he's not, you know. Talk to us a little bit about,
Absolutely,
you know,
absolutely.
how do the
So
kids adapt to that?
so for me and what we teach is, I think the number one thing is teaching athletes that they're bigger than the sport that they play. Right? When you feel as if that the sport is all you have and the sport is all of who you are, then when you run into those situations and they're not as readily or easily you're not easily able to overcome them as you have been before, then that's when we run into those situations. But when we can teach the athlete the process of being great, right? The process of making progress and the process of going through those things, then that's when those situations happen, that it's not a look at them as a person, right? It's a look at just where they are athletically, that these are things you need to work on. So I think for coaches and parents out there, when you have an athlete who's going through those things, how can we help them to develop the person they are so that they understand that if you become this great person and when those situations arise, you're able to navigate through those things. Because at the end of the day, if you believe in yourself, one of our 8 plays of life, we always say it is impossible to stop a person who will not quit. It's impossible. So if you decide already that you're not going to stop, that you're not going to quit in these situations, and now you focus on how to become that better person, not to sound cliche, but you focus on who you are outside of the sports field, then what happens is now you're able to handle those obstacles, so to speak, and you look at them as any other obstacle in life, right? If I can work through this, then life obstacles are going to be a little bit better. So that's how, especially here at Motivate the Game, we try to, allow our kids to think like lions. That's why we have the lion, to think like a lion all the time when you're the best and when you have to work through to work your way back up.
That's a beautiful answer, man.
For sure.
Bruh, I mean, you've been around the sports aspect as well, but, you know, just because we want to make this for athletes as well as
For sure.
Jimmy Moon walking in the hallway. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
So, from your experience and what you're seeing, you know, with all the places you've worked and the people who've been around, because like you've been in South Dakota, you've been in San Diego, Mississippi, you've been across seas, so you've having a chance to see different cultural mental health. You know, like the South might have been way racist than where we was at there, or the resources in South Dakota on the reservation wasn't what it. Just talk to us a little bit about some of those things that you encountered, far as when you was moving around with the mental health thing.
Okay. So, for me, man, I think the reality of it is we all humans. We all go through the same things. But I think the difference is there's such a stigma with mental health when it comes to the African American communities or any minority community, right? Even working on the reservations, like there was no services, it was absent, right? And so just to get people to buy into and understand how important mental health is and healthy, to be healthy mentally. Because, you can be the greatest athlete, but if you're not okay inside, if you're not okay within, then you can compromise and jeopardize everything you've accomplished on the field.
No doubt.
When you come off of that field. And in life with everybody, right? The job I've done for the last few years is working with the community. And I see this a lot, is like helping people understand that they can overcome, right? I think a lot of times when we get hit with, just like you was explaining, the situation when you're not scoring those touchdowns, when you're not making this, the limelight, right? In people's lives, we have those same moments where we're not at our best. We're not performing at work. We got problems in our relationships. We got problems at home. How do we eat? How do I feed my kids? I think that's something that we all as human beings go through. And so, when you learn to develop those inner strengths and you teach them, coping skills and things and resources and how to navigate and how to be okay mentally, right? Then you can navigate when those things come, right? So even though there are challenges, you can overcome those challenges. It's a way out. You just have to have that mentality that there's a solution, right?
And to your point, you're right. The one thing that I definitely wanted to touch on, and I wanted to touch on earlier and give as much time as you guys need to talk about that, is some of the signs, because some people don't even know they got mental health. Some people don't even know what mental health is. Some people think that what they thinking in their mind is normal or right. So between y'all, you know, you can tell some of the telltale signs of a mental health issue in an athlete or in a normal student. So just want to let y'all take the floor with that.
Yeah, I think for me, it's first realizing what mental health is, right? Your mental health is how you think and process situations, right? Not saying that you have to think and process situations the same as everyone else, but if the way you think and process certain situations, things you've gone through are hindering you from becoming the best version of yourself, that's when we run into mental health related issues, right? So when you're doing things or engaging in things or around people who aren't allowing you to become the best version of yourself, that all of us know, right? Even the hardest person, the hardest athlete to crack, he knows the parts of him that he feels are the best. So I think that's the first thing when our life doesn't match how we think about ourselves, right? And then the next piece that I want us to understand is that I want to pop the bubble for individuals thinking that just by going to a therapist or things of that nature, that those thoughts are gonna stop. Every one of us, right? Even DreKentalk. Every one of us struggle with certain negative thoughts, struggle with these depressive thoughts, struggle with these anxieties. So I want to pop that bubble first because we'll think we're the only ones. No, it's how we handle those situations and how we use that fuel. So that voice is not going to go away. Just because you come see me or come see Mr. Wingo, those voices, those thoughts, those depressive symptoms aren't necessarily going to go away. But as I tell my athletes, life doesn't get easier, we get stronger. So when you learn these coping strategies and you're able to process those things, then that's what really takes you to the next level. And then lastly, the biggest thing, and then I'm gonna let you go and I'll come back to signs and symptoms later. But one of the biggest things that I also want to say earlier is that people don't understand the importance of having someone to talk to, because we, especially in the black community, because we always talking to mama, we always talking to grandmama, we always talking to sister, bro. But what we don't realize is that they can't be mama. They can't be grandma. They can't be your wife. They can't be your husband because you're dumping all of this on them. Now, I'm not saying they don't want to hear it, but the importance of having someone to be able to vent to allows everyone else in your life to be what they're there for. Right. So as I tell people all the time, and I simplify mental health, I don't use all the big words. I make it digestible for everyone to understand it. But how I tell everyone all the time is, if you were to break your ankle, you wouldn't call me on the phone and be like, yo, Brooks, man, I broke my ankle. What should I do about it? No. You would go to the doctor and then you would tell me how you got better. But it's for whatever reason, the mental health field, we go through loss, we go through tragedy, we go through even minute things of not getting the job we wanted, or all these things that have an effect on our mental health, or for athletes, not getting the position, breaking up with your girlfriend, breaking up with your boyfriend, all these things that have an effect on us, and we don't seek support, right? I'm not saying that every situation should have this professional, but we'll have these traumatic events and talk to Bob Joe about it and think that we're going to, when they're dealing with the same things, as opposed to coming to a professional, where this is what I do all the time. Right. This is the only thing I'm good at. So being able to come to those individuals is super important for you to find that professional help for those professional problems, right?
I think you hit it right on the head. I think, developing those coping skills is huge. When you come to a therapist, I think people first and foremost need to understand that when you say therapy, it's scary. Right? I think it's such a fear with that.
Or embarrassing.
Yeah, absolutely. Such a fear with it that I gotta expose myself, right? Yeah. I gotta be weak. I gotta, show somebody my weakness. And in essence, it's just the opposite, right? You could basically, what I tell people is, therapy is an opportunity for you to sit down and to talk with us about whatever it is that's on your mind, right? And we let you figure this out, because this is your life. You're the expert on your life, not us, right? And so what we're going to do is guide a conversation, right? But the conversation is going to stem from what you want to discuss. And what we talk about is confidential between us. The only time we have to report anything like that, what you're telling us is if, it's some kind of safety issue, child abuse, something like that. But for the most part, it's just an open session for you to be able to talk about what you want to get off of your chest, right? A lot of times when you're talking about signs and symptoms, right? When you find yourself sleeping in the bed 2-3 hours, can't get up in the evening, don't want to get up and do nothing, you haven't bathed in 2 days, things like that, That's depression. You know what I'm saying? Like, you need to understand what that is.
Yeah.
Some of the jobs our parents have, you know what I mean? Like, they're stressful jobs, or you don't know how the ends going, you're going to make these ends meet, how you going to feed your family. So instead of dealing with it, right, we stay covered up in the bed, bundled up, and don't deal with it.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And so, as we know, that doesn't fix anything. Right. And so, just having those support systems in place and just understanding what it is you're dealing with. Also understanding that a lot of times mental health is hereditary. You know, some of these things they're dealing with, these diagnoses, is hereditary.
Yeah.
Some of the more serious diagnoses. And so just understanding what it is, because you might not understand why you feel the way you do, or a lot of times, especially if you're talking to yourself or you're hearing voices in your head, right? Mm-hmm. You're not going to just come out and tell somebody, "Hey, I'm hearing voices. Yeah, somebody's telling me this." Right? Yeah. So you know, when you think about it from that aspect, it's like, yeah, I understand the fear, right? People are going to judge me. Yeah. Right. And so what I want to do in this conversation is to make it okay for people to understand that it is okay to not be okay. Does that make sense?
I love it. I love it. I love it.
It's not okay.
That's it.
Because all of us are not okay. It's somewhere.
It's somewhere in our lives.
It's just the way we compartmentalize things and the way we deal with things, or the way we deal with them. Right. The ones that compartmentalize, a lot of times they have problems.
Absolutely.
Right? Absolutely. Get it out. Absolutely. With them the same way. Those are the ones that cope. Right. It don't mean that we don't, that the problem's gone.
That's
right?
it.
It just means we know how to cope with it.
That's it. We figured out different ways to cope with it. Not to cut you. But I think also, you talked about it early on. I think so often in our community, we normalize trauma. Right? We've normalized the things, so then we don't talk about it. Think about it. In the Black community, your mama used to say, "Boy, don't talk about nothing outside of this house," right? So that goes back to years and years of that being the safe space, right? Whereas now we've held in so much that we don't know what to do with it. So you could be struggling and you think it's normal, right? And I think for me, growing up, and I love my mother and I love my father to this day, but my mother was in prison, right? And I thought everybody's mom was in prison. Right. So imagine being a kid and I'm thinking everybody lives with their grandparents. Everybody goes to because I didn't get that experience of being able to get dropped off at grandma's house and things like that. So we normalize these things until it's time to process them. So what I think the biggest thing for me within individuals, especially athletes coming to therapy, is being able to let that stuff off and not hold it in, so that they understand, like, yo, that's not normal, but that's okay. Let's figure out how we can walk through it. And then when I talk about signs and symptoms, again, I make stuff so simple. Is I tell athletes, and I talk to people too, and I say, because the two prominent diagnoses and struggles that we see within individuals is depression and anxiety. Those are the two, right? So I give individuals an example of how to recognize it. Depression is when you can't get over the past. Right? Something that has happened, something that you can't change about the past. And anxiety is just the opposite, is when you're worried about the future. Right? Now, sometimes they're intersecting, they're crossover. You can have some anxiety about some things. But for the most part, if you want to look at how to categorize where you are, just by first understanding what it is, right? So many athletes, so many young people, so many people that are getting in a lot of trouble, they don't recognize that they're dealing with anxiety when they're coming up to this situation. So that's why they end up fighting. Right. They're anxious about it, or they don't understand why they're so sad all the time, because it's something they haven't dealt with in their past. So just when we do that, that's a simple question that you can kind of ask yourself: is it the past, or am I worried about the future? That's an easy way to kind of recognize if it's depression or anxiety.
Sure.
No doubt. Sure. But hey, another thing, man, just, I was looking, we talking minorities, and then we're talking, black and white, whatever. But, it's black and white go through the same.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
It may be different things that triggers it, but we go through, like, I was looking at a poll, and it said, like, I forgot the year born after, but it was like, I think 60-something% of kids in the African American community has seen something that traumatized them, that's causing post-traumatic syndrome as of right now. Whether it was a killing or a stabbing or whatever it may be. But at the same time, it was still a poll that said something about kids that live over a certain, that's parents that live over a certain income status. They have those same traumatic experiences, but it's different.
Absolutely.
Mom and dad lost their job, and they're not living the same. You know, it's not the same type of money no more. Or, you know, mom and dad are going through a certain thing, and you know, it's but it's the same. It's mental health.
Yeah, absolutely.
So just talk to us a little bit about some of the differences that a kid from the hood might experience compared to another kid that's not from the hood.
Go ahead.
Let me share a story. So, you know, I was stationed out in California, and I was in the military for 20 years, like I said. So, you know, you live decent. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
One time my son told me, he said that when I come out here with you, I feel like I'm rich. When I go back home, I don't feel like I'm rich. And I thought about that thing, like, what does he mean, right? And so I was going back, I wrote this down when you were talking about those kids, right? Imagining, you know, not having, or you felt like everybody's mom was in jail. Think about the kids, though, that see their mom and dad pull up to pick up these other kids in a nice car, and they got money, and they can buy whatever they want for lunch, and they can think about those kids. And I got holes in the bottom of my shoes, right? And I didn't even eat breakfast this morning.
Whole nother pressure,
right? You understand what I'm saying? So the parallels are there, but it's the same, but it's so different, right? Yeah, because it's the same issues, right? We still have the same problems because when their mom and dad lose their job, they can't tolerate it because all they know is success.
Yes.
Right. But when you know nothing but failure, or what we perceive failure, just not having, right? When that's all you know, right? Yeah. And you'll do anything it takes to get some of what they got over there.
No doubt.
Right.
No doubt.
And I guess just before we go, is I think one of the biggest things is being able to understand that. I think the more we're able to talk about our similarities and our struggles, right? I think the less I don't want to say racism, but the less issues we will have across cultures, because I think when we don't talk about the things that we share, right, and that's why I think a lot of times mental health is so stigmatized, because they don't want us to communicate that, yo, I share this same thing. And I think if you think about it in the football field, the reason why we get so close on the teams is because we go through the same struggles together. Right. We go through the same struggles. It's not the same wins, it's the same struggles that we go through, right? When we have to go through practice, we have to. So I think as people, when we can struggle together and recognize that we have those struggles, I think as a people, we would become closer and things would get better.
I agree.
No doubt. Well, we're here with Mr. Daniel Brooks and Mr. Leroy Wingo, and we're going to pay a couple of bills, and we'll be right back. And we're back with Mr. Daniel Brooks, Motivate the Game, clinical specialist, therapist, and Mr. Leroy Wingo, my brother, another clinical specialist, mental health specialist. And we left off just talking about, you know, different signs of mental health that you could be having some issues. And just let everybody know up front, if you are alive and you are a human being, you have a mental health issue somewhere.
Absolutely.
Something that we're dealing with. So don't feel embarrassed.
Absolutely.
But what we want to do now is we want to just talk to you guys about some of the things that these folks can do for help. Where can they go for help? You know, when is it the time to go for help? So I'll just let you start, bro, and then we can get to Daniel after that.
Okay. So I know in the Lynchburg area, we definitely have some resources available to you. Myself being an independent therapist right now, I'm available for consultation, for, you know, sit down and just talk about things and figure out if it's a good fit. Definitely. There are some community resources if you don't have insurance, things like that. You know, it's so important that people really pay attention to this mental health and get a hold of it, man, and really just start getting their lives back on track, man, because that's really what it's about, is really just knowing how powerful this can be for you, right? To have somebody that you can just process things with. And I think the time is now. You don't wait until you're in that complete funk, and now you got to dig out of that hole from down at the bottom, when you might just be at the edge, you might be able to get the help you need right now.
Absolutely.
Just by reaching out and having that conversation, you know.
Absolutely.
Now, one question before I get to Daniel, I wanted to ask you. What do you say to the folks that don't have insurance or can't afford the therapy? I know you was, because a lot of times when you hear, it's just like a doctor's office. When you don't
Right.
got insurance, you gonna get non-insurance
Sure.
help.
Sure.
You
sure.
will get non-insurance service. You're not going to get that top tier service. Let's just be real.
Right.
So, what do we say to those folks that can't pay a therapist, or those folks that don't have the insurance to get the therapist paid? Just talk because a lot of times you would just okay, if I go in here, they're just giving me a free somebody because he got to do it free.
Right.
So just talk to us a little bit about that.
So I think I think there's a misnomer to that too, because I think just like with every professional therapist, like we are guided by practice, by laws, by strict laws that whatever we do, whether we're getting paid $100, whether we're getting paid $30, you do your best and you give your best service, right? And so I know in the community it's a stigma, and you hear about they got to do it, this, that, and the other. Well, they really don't have to do it, right? And so I would hope that every therapist out there, whether they're being paid $50 or whether they're being paid $150, are doing the same job, right? Giving their all, because that's what it's really supposed to be, right? That's the ethical standards that we adhere to. So so hopefully that just kind of dispelled that piece of it. But what I would tell people is don't be discouraged. Like, if you want help and you need help, reach out, go get it, man. Find the resources available to you, and go for it, right? And here's the thing. Just like with anything else we do, that therapist might not be a good fit for you, right? That's why you do the consultation to discuss, hey, how do we fit together, right? Does this work? Because if it doesn't fit, then it's not going to be good for you, right? And it's okay to say, no, I don't think this is going to work for me. I think that's the biggest piece we got to understand is advocate for yourself. If you don't feel comfortable with this therapist for whatever reason, they're not going to be offended because we understand that this is your life.
No doubt.
Right?
No doubt.
Yeah. So they'll most of the time make a referral to somebody who might be better for you.
Absolutely. I really think, first of all, if individuals have Medicaid, you have access to everything, right? So I want to dispel some of that stigma too. Is like if you have Medicaid for whatever reason that you have access. So I would tell the individual, start with the back of your insurance card if you do have insurance, from Medicaid to your main insurance, to see what's covered, right, and then start from there. For the individuals who don't have insurance, most of the time when we you look at those individuals, they're more of the working class individuals and things of that nature. And that's really where I started at and wanted to work with is the education of understanding that when you invest to work on yourself, it turns into an investment because the return. So I truly feel as if you can budget in that support, then that's a way to look at it too. Because once you recognize that you need help, it becomes just as important as eating, right? And that's where the thought process comes into play. So making sure that you're willing to invest, right? And finding that therapist that can meet your financial needs, because a lot of therapists do work with sliding scales and things of that nature. Or there's a lot of free groups in the community, right? If you can't fully get that individual, then start to look for groups, where some people start is at the church and things of that nature. So there are a lot of places that we can start if you want to start this habit of making yourself important, right? Because the truth of the matter is, and I hate to say this, is that either you're going to go after it and get it, or something's going to make you get it, right? You know what I'm saying? Like not necessarily because you get in trouble, but it's going to get so bad where you're going to have to. So I feel as if that if we do the due diligence to seek and to find the information that's needed, then I think that's going to be huge. And for me, I think tearing down those barriers, the education is everything. If we can educate, things like this show is super important, because when we can educate the steps, there's your local community service boards, here in Roanoke is Blue Ridge Behavioral Health. I don't know what it's called in Lynchburg, but they have those things where you can go and you can start with those free services. And what I was going to say about those free services, even if you have this thought, they just going to give me somebody free, get what you need from them. Right? Like the common misconception is that a therapist is supposed to get you better, right? I'm not here to fix you, right? But that's not it. But if you come wanting to get better, then when you go to this, even if it's a free therapist or a free counselor, you get what you need from them, right? Even by having a professional, because one of the key pieces that all counselors have to do is when you come, we create what's called your individual service plan, right? Your ISP. Just by having an ISP, we set up your goals. What other place do you have a person that's setting up goals with you for you to talk about? Then we figure out your objectives. What do you need to do on a daily basis to reach that goal? And then there's things called interventions that the therapist is supposed to do from that. So I want to empower you guys that just by creating this ISP, you've jump started your future just by doing that, right? Because now you have this plan. Where else can you go that a professional individual is going to create a plan for your life? And that's as far to, in some instance, that you need to know is if you don't know this person, you don't know where to start, hey, can we just create my service plan? Can we just create the things I want to work on? Just by working on and talking about the things you want to work on, that's an intervention in itself. So you get that from that therapist, and if you feel like you guys aren't a good fit, you take this and you figure out how can I apply this. And then the thing about the service plan is it's fluid. You're always able to change. As you accomplish goals, now your life has this roadmap, right? So now you're working through these things, and and that's one of the most powerful things about the therapeutic process is that service plan and those goals, those objectives that you can start to check off, just like having a financial advisor, right? They're going to help you reach these road marks. What's better than a mental health person that can work on the goals and the things you need to work on as an individual?
Just adding a little bit to that.
Yeah, absolutely.
When he's talking about his completing that service plan, right? It's a treatment plan that basically you're the driver, you're the navigator, right? So it's your plan. It's not us creating your plan for you, right? It's you creating your plan with us, right? And so it's so valuable, man. Like he said, I mean, that's awesome to have somebody creating a plan for your life with you, right? That's not judging you, right? That's empathetic and understanding and there just to hear what you want to do and what you're trying to say.
Basically, want to help you to get better.
Absolutely, and go on this journey with you. And one thing that I also want to pop the bubble, because there's probably somebody watching that's saying, what is talking about my problems going to do? What is the point of talking about it? But the analogy I always give, and this could be too simple, but I tell people all the time, is that if you were to talk to someone who cares about you, your mom, your grandmother, your spouse, someone who truly cares about you, and you would say, man, I'm hungry, right? You talked about hungry and what you want to eat. What's going to eventually happen? You're going to get some food. You're going to eat. Right. It's the same thing with talking about your problems. If you talk about it with a professional, someone cares about you, then eventually you're going to eat, so to speak. You're going to get better. Things are going to come from it. So talking about it just helps you to get through the process and working on how to get the food, so to speak. So it's so important that talking about those pieces, and mind you, talk therapy may not be the thing for everybody. There's music therapy. There's art therapy. There's our form of therapy. That's a therapy to sports training. There's hypnotherapy where you can incorporate hypnotism. There's EMDR where we do eye movement. There's so many pieces of therapy that we can go through, but it's super important that if you just start the process and you invest in yourself, sky's the limit, right? Your goals, your dreams, the things you want to accomplish on the other side of these mental things that's blocking you, because we were all born with the gift. We were all born with something special inside of us, and for whatever reason, we don't believe we can get there. So my only goal, and how I simplify, I want to get you that blockage out of the way and get you to that best version of yourself, right? And get you to that best father, that best mother, that best teammate, that best individual that for whatever reason you don't believe that you can do it.
One thing I know, man, that I've learned along the way is, like, people don't care how much you know until they know how much you care.
Absolutely.
Right?
No doubt.
And that's when you can start moving, because people got to trust you first.
They have to.
Absolutely.
Right?
They got to trust you.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
But I'm gonna tell you, man, and another thing, another flip side to that, you hear health is wealth.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. But a part of that health is just not physical. It's mental.
Yes, absolutely.
Right? Because you can have all the money in the world, you can be the healthiest person physically in the world.
Mm-hmm.
But if you got your mind playing tricks on you, then
think about
you hit it. Yeah. Go ahead.
No, I was gonna say, think about how many times we've seen it. I forget the gentleman's name. To us, he traveled the world and he tried food, and he ended up dying by suicide. Right? He had one of the greatest jobs traveling. But so what I'm saying is absolutely health is wealth, but adding in the mental part of it. Right? Becoming a millionaire is not that's not the hard part. That don't solve nothing. Becoming the person who earns $1 million. That's the most important part. When you can become that millionaire without it, then that's peace, right? People think happiness, and Will Smith said this, so if you saw it, don't think I got it. Will Smith said this, he said, happiness is not pleasure. Happiness is peace. Yeah. Right? We try to find pleasure. We always looking and trying to be happy with all these things. The most pleasurable moment in the individual life only lasts a couple seconds. So the brain can't handle a lot of pleasure because it shows our body can't handle all of that. So what we need to seek and go after is peace in our mind, peace in our marriage, peace in our lives. And then that's when we become that mentally healthy person. Then we can get off all these layers and we can realize that goal and that dream. Yo, I always wanted to be in the ballet, but everybody told me I should play football, right? I always wanted to really do this, but I didn't think I could. I went through this as a kid and I always wanted to get there. That's when we become the person. That's when we can be our authentic self. That's when mental health, and we're able to kind of manage and control that mental health.
Yeah, I mean, it's, the knowledge. It's the knowledge. I mean, I'm sitting here like, man, dog. I'm on one. Like,
I love it. I love it.
DreKentalk. I'm going to have a show for the night. Nah, man, I mean, this is beautiful, man, because, again, when they watch the DreKentalk show, you see sports. Mm-hmm. You see other types of stuff like that, but, my way is, sports is my lane. Mm-hmm. I ain't trying to be a politician. Mm-hmm. I ain't trying to talk about brain surgery. Mm-hmm. Sports, kids, and life, that's my lane. That's what I do.
I love it.
And, to have you guys on here and, incorporate that, not only for the athletes, but for, like, normal, everyday students, adults. I mean, it's special and it's a blessing, man. I guess, in closing, I just want you guys just to talk about, again, how can they get help in Roanoke? Mm-hmm. How can they get help in Lynchburg? Mm-hmm. Okay. What are some more defining signs? Because like sometimes, some kids might see it and be like, well, he ain't say my side. Mm-hmm. You know what I'm saying? So we want to make sure that we covering everything that you guys have seen because, my thing is this. We want these super athletes to be super healthy mentally and physically. We want these regular kids to go to school to be super students, healthy mentally and physically. We want these adults that's out here that has these kids or just out here living. We want them to have something to be able to where they can go to, and feel comfortable going to. And, we want them to be able to know some of those symptoms because a lot of people don't know when you're depressed.
Absolutely.
They just think you're just in a bad mood, you cussing everybody out every day.
Right.
That's a form of depression. Something is causing that.
Right.
And when you sit there I've talked to people like, man, they just crying. I don't know what's wrong with me. Yeah, you got some type of mental thing going on. Right. And like we said before, some people just don't want to deal with it. But then again, the most important thing is that you got people that want to, that don't know how to. Mm-hmm. Right. So like I said, just talk to us a bit about what they can do in Roanoke and some of those more symptoms than you in Lynchburg and some of the other symptoms that you may have in the county.
You want me to pop it out? Yeah. I ain't want to jump in there. So I guess when we look at just places here in Roanoke, again, I think the Blue Ridge Behavioral Health is a great place to start. From there, especially if you're an athlete at school, talking to your guidance counselor, right? Really trying to go in and speak, or at least a person that you trust, right? Finding that teacher or that coach, or that coach, right? That's even more important, than what their title is. Finding a person that you trust that can kind of navigate you and go alongside with you to go have that conversation, right?
No. But I wanted you to emphasize. Because there's people in position to do this. Absolutely. These kids don't trust, and they're just in a position.
Absolutely. So absolutely a person you can trust because even if they do have this title, even if you don't trust them, they still should do their job. So you go alongside with someone that you trust to go speak to this individual who has the information, and you get the information from them to get the appropriate help. And then from there, I think it's. When we talk about signs and we talk about symptoms, and then of course here Motivate the Game if you're here in Roanoke, right? I want to say that going to motivatethegame.com, this is a great avenue for especially for athletes and individuals who like athletics to want to kind of get some support. And then there's Psychology Today. for the more of a national website where now you can, especially if you're in Virginia, you can get that virtual individual, which virtual has taken off since. And it's a beautiful thing. And if you want confidentiality, then virtual is a great way to go. And then uplift.com and a few of those other those websites you can get it to. And then just when we last point about signs and symptoms, you're normal, right? When you're sleeping longer or not able to sleep, right? When these things, all of us are thinking, all of us have those negative thoughts. So whatever negative thought you have, that can be mental health. But when it starts to manifest itself and it starts to affect your biological functions, that's when it becomes an issue, and that's when you need to get help. So when your sleep is affected, you're sleeping way too long, you're not able to get any sleep at all. When you can't eat, right? Those are the things that we see that go first. And then when it's manifesting itself as things that's causing you to get in trouble. One of the biggest ways that kids cry out for help is by getting in trouble.
Exactly.
Right? They cry out for help by getting in trouble. And what I explain to athletes is that knowing that, and what, not athletes, but in grown-ups, knowing that this kid is crying out for help, we just got to figure out what it is, and by having that process. So I think all those things, we have those thoughts, we have those doubts about ourselves, but when they start to affect your biological functions, that's when you absolutely need to get help, right? And that's the main part that I wanted to leave off on. Yep.
And before you go, I'm gonna just tell you, it's crazy you said that today, because I put up a post, and it was a kid. He got up and the teacher kicked him out the class. He was sitting there telling him, like, why don't you try to excite us instead of giving us packets? We're the future, what you call them. And I had some teachers that was like, I was like, respectfully, that's beautiful. I had some teachers was like, well, you don't know what happened that for a little 10-second clip. But I could tell that kid was sincere. He was crying out, and that's what the teacher said. You're wasting my time. And they was just like, well, how could you get all that you got out of that just by that stuff? Because it's a critical situation when a kid giving you the absolute truth, constructive criticism, and your first answer is, you wasting my time? Right. So I'm glad you brought that up, because at the end of the day, that kid was fed up. Sure. He wasn't disrespectful. He got up and, he read it to her. Read it to her like she's supposed to get it. She couldn't take it. Right. But at the end of the day, I think when that kid left out of there, he was like, finally. Yeah. Because, if ain't nobody did nothing about that, it was just like he was the dog. But I'm glad you put that up.
Absolutely.
I happened to be on that today, and I had to just let people know how I feel.
Absolutely. I love it.
You know, Dre, to add on to that, man, I think you hit it right on the head, too. Our kids, man, have a lot to say, right? These children have a lot to say, and all their lives they hear, don't talk back.
Yep.
Right?
Yeah.
You're a child.
Yeah.
Don't talk back. They hear it at home. Then they go to school. People tell them don't talk back.
Yep.
Right? So if I can't tell you how I'm feeling, then what I'm supposed to do?
What I'm supposed to do?
Exactly.
So then how does it come out? Right? It comes out in me misbehaving.
Yes.
It comes out in me being a knucklehead in class. Yep. It comes out in me frustrated, getting in fights, right? Cursing the teacher out, throwing my Chromebook down the step. These are the things that comes out because for so long they've been suppressed. Yeah. That's the thing about mental health. When I suppress my feelings, eventually it's coming out.
Rumble.
Right?
It's going to explode.
You push the spring down long enough, it's going to blow up, right?
Yeah.
So that's what happens with us as individuals. We push things and we're suppressed so long. Yeah. I think, one thing I always talk about in my parenting class that I facilitate, right, is that when we do this to children, right, we are setting them up to be these monsters that we see when they turn 15 and 16 years old. Because for 8 years you're telling me, shut up, don't talk back, do what I tell you to do. Yeah. But when they turn 15 and 16 and you can no longer
shut them up.
Yeah. Now I'm going to talk because you can't stop me, right? So now I got this teenager that's out of hand and I don't understand where it came from. Yeah. The light came on. They just switched. No, they didn't switch. This was the monster you created, right?
Yeah.
And so I think parents really have to understand what we're doing to our kids when we don't allow them to have those conversations or to tell us what they're feeling, right? And it's important.
As well as the systems,
right? I was going to say, as well as school, we have to take the time to hear these kids. Yeah. Right? If you can't hear them, then you don't give them the platform to tell you what they're feeling.
Absolutely. I tell people all the time that some of the greatest leaders and the greatest talkers are kids, right? Think about it. Like, I'm a firm believer that we were all given a gift at birth and God directly spoke to us. So who's the closest to that gift? A kid. Yeah. We've been blinded by so many situations and all these things that have happened. And what happens, that's why God talks about the children are the most purest of us, because they're the closest to the gift that God gave them. So I feel like that's why I always work with kids, and I always will, because I truly feel as if they have something to say. It's just helping them to learn and to manage how to express themselves. And once you listen to a child, you got them forever. And I really feel as if when adults can lend that ear and teach kids how to respectfully express themselves, that's when we're changing. Also, adults making sure that you have to, especially adults in the helping profession, you have to constantly recharge and find the things that help you, because you're dealing with a person, a real life individual. So if you're not getting filled up, if you're not going to therapy yourself, if you work with someone and you don't have someone helping you, that's a problem. Yeah. That's a problem.
And hit it again.
You can't take on.
We need therapy.
Absolutely. Every person in the world.
It's human nature.
But you know what though? Years ago, years ago, whenever, if I feel the opportunity, if I see something ain't right, but back in, I used to tell people, I used to call these folks out because dog, you really sitting there putting it all on this kid. Right. You're not letting this kid hear nothing. Right. You're not, you antagonizing this kid. Right. You already got in your mind that Miss Jackson has said when he come to you, he gonna be a problem. So you already got a preconceived notion in your head about this kid. Right. And that was the problem that I had with a lot of stuff, and I called a lot of stuff out. Mm-hmm. And that's why a lot of people was like, yeah, he just trying to, now what was the word they said? They said he's bothersome. No, I ain't bothersome. I just care about what these kids do, and I'm going to speak out against it. I don't care what you say. It's all about me, because that don't matter, because at the end of the day, I'm about what's the best for these kids. Absolutely. Now, 5 years later, oh, that's what he was talking about. Oh, he ain't as crazy as I thought he was. Oh, he ain't just starting stuff. But now you seeing it. Right. You seeing all this stuff that I was barking to y'all about years ago, how these kids was getting done. Absolutely. How these kids was, you bring them all the way to the brink, and then you can't use them no more. Now it's...
Right. Right.
But Dad, what happened when I could come to your office and knock on your door?
Right.
When I was playing for you.
Right.
Or when I was at your student.
Right.
Now I can't do this.
Mm-hmm.
Right. That's mental health.
Absolutely. Every bit of it.
Affect that kid. He's gonna hate you for one thing. He ain't gonna never trust you again. Nobody else like you again.
That's it. That's it. I love it.
Yes, man. I'm telling you, man, this has been on fire.
I love it. I love it.
We gotta stop for the moment, but hey, we're gonna do this once a month.
I love it. I love
it. If you guys out there, you need any help in Roanoke, or you can reach out to Mr. Daniel Brooks, Motivate the Game. We'll have all his information up. I'm going to point right here because my dog Greg going to make sure his numbers and stuff right here. That's it. And then we got my brother, Leroy Wingo in the Lynchburg area. Here's his number and everything else right here too. We're going to have it for you. But listen, man, it's not, like I tell people, there's no such thing as a dumb question. There's no such thing of not getting enough help.
Right.
Dog, take the help, man. I promise you, you're going to love yourself more when you get that help, and you're going to wish you did it a long time ago, and you wouldn't have to go through as much as you're going through. So for Daniel Brooks, Motivate the Game, my brother Leroy Wingo, this is Drekentalk, the Mental Health Edition and Series. So stay tuned.
I love it.
We're going to see y'all next month. And if you guys got any questions, again, call these numbers. If you don't know how to get in contact with any of them, or you want to come through me, I'll put you in the right direction. Absolutely. Confidentially. Again, this has been Drekentalk. We're out. Thank you guys for watching Drekentalk. Be on the lookout for more exclusive content. Like, share, subscribe. Drekentalk out.